So for the last around 3 months, I've been working on this Google Chrome extension called EngageAlot, which is a little tool that makes it easier for YouTubers to answer their YouTube comments by adding shortcuts and some AI suggestions. Now, the extension has been out on the Chrome Web Store for little more than 1 month, but I actually want to wrap up this project at this point, and I consider it a failed attempt. Now, first of all, I want to say that I don't regret putting in the time into this project at all. I don't think it was a waste of time. On the contrary, I learned a ton in the process. In the 3 months I've been working on this, I learned how to create a browser extension. Even though I had no JavaScript experience when I started, or very little, I learned how to build a website in React, which is an amazing framework, and I'm sure I will be using this in the future. And I learned how to build a server with Node and how to deploy it on a Linux machine, which was a learning experience as well. So I'm really happy that I built this, and I would do it over again, but I still want to wrap it up because in the more than 1 month it has been out, I wasn't able to gain any traction with it, meaning that I don't have any active users. First of all, it was really hard to get people to try it out in the first place. Even though I cold emailed, I don't know, maybe 100 YouTubers, I shared the extension in other places, Facebook groups, on Discord. And of course I documented the whole process here on YouTube, which should also help gain some traction. But I think it's hard for people to understand the idea behind this extension and why they should answer more comments in the first place, because what I'm trying to sell them is actually more work when you think about it. Most YouTubers found their own way to handle comments. Most of them just don't answer most of the comments they get because it's too much work, and even though the extension helps make this easier, they would actually have to put in more work, and most of them don't really see the reason or the payout they get from this. Even though answering more comments does give you more engagement in return and helps your channel grow and build your user base, I think most people just don't see the point in this. They don't see the point in putting in more work, and yeah, I completely get this. In hindsight, I know that the signs weren't good when I started out, because I showed this extension and the idea and the early beta version to some other YouTubers, some tech YouTubers, and there wasn't much interest in it. I mean, there were 1 or 2 people who liked the idea, but overall I should have realized by then that there is not much interest in this idea. I also wrote about 100 cold emails to YouTubers and asked them to use this tool. Also there I got like 2 people who signed up, but they didn't actually use it. I could see it in my database that they didn't actually use it once. And I think that I still could turn it into something profitable if I would pivot, if I would change the features of it, maybe focus on something else. I could probably still turn it into something that people want to use, but there are also some other things that I don't like in hindsight that I would do different in the future. The biggest learning is that in the future I will avoid making my projects so dependent on other platforms. EngageAlot depends on 2 other platforms, the Chrome Web Store, because this is basically the only way for me to distribute this Chrome extension, and this already sucks, to be honest, because on the Chrome Web Store they have to approve every update you want to ship out. So if you want to ship a bug fix, then it won't be deployed immediately. You also have to comply by their rules, which can sometimes be too strict. You can, for example, not obfuscate your code because they don't want this. You have to play by Google's rules, and this is always a downside because they control the space. It's their world. They can do what they want. If they decide tomorrow that my extension should be not allowed anymore, then they could kick it off the Chrome Web Store, and this whole business would be gone from one day to another, basically. And the second platform EngageAlot depends on very much is, of course, YouTube. The extension only works on the YouTube's comment page because this is the idea behind the whole extension, and it has been difficult to battle with the HTML and CSS structure of this page all the time. Because the way such a Chrome extension works is that you basically inject it into the website on the screen. You inject it into the HTML structure, and this makes it difficult. Even just showing a pop-up, which is normally an easy task, was difficult because the way their HTML was built. The pop-up was hidden below other elements and I couldn't get it into the foreground without some hacks. And of course, if YouTube decides to change the way their comment page looks, or maybe even do some A/B tests where only 5% of people have a different structure, then I will have to adapt to this, and it can be difficult to catch this on time. And yeah, now I'm working on this other project I'm building, which is called TuTab.io. I already introduced this in the last video. If you want to see what this is about, it's a search tool for programming tutorials and courses and resources. And the difference is that this is my very own website where I have full control over how I build this, how often I ship updates. I don't have to play by anyone else's rules. Of course, I can't break the law, but that's basically it. I can do what I want with this website, which is a much better feeling than relying so much on other platforms. This doesn't mean that I will never build a Chrome extension or a mobile app anymore, but I will try to not make it the main part of the whole project. It should just be an add-on, in my opinion, because you just want this full control. You don't want to be so dependent on Google or any other platform and their mood swings. So yeah, again, I'm happy that I learned all this stuff and I don't consider it a waste of time, but from now on I will focus on my new project TuTab.io. And the difference here is that there is more interest to begin with. As a comparison, I set up a waiting list for EngageAlot back then when I made videos about the idea, and I got 13 sign-ups on this waiting list, and so basically no interest at all. When I made a video about the idea of TuTab.io, I think I got like 150 sign-ups on the very first day when I made this video. So there is much more interest in this project, and even though of course I don't know if this will be any useful in the future, if this will gain any traction, time will tell, but I think the idea is better and it's easier to see the usefulness in this product. So yeah, now let's take a quick look at TuTab.io and the current state of the project. I'm still working on this. Right now on TuTab.io there is still the waiting list. So if you wanna join the beta phase, which should be earlier, then you can type in your email here. I will keep you updated and I will send you a message when this is ready to be used. My plan is to release a simple version of this as soon as possible. Again, the idea is to release an MVP, a minimum viable product, as early as possible with only a small feature set, and then get some user input and build it from there. This is generally a better idea than building a huge product at once and releasing it. I talked about the idea behind an MVP more in the very first startup vlog video. I will link it in the info card box in the top right corner here in this video if you want to watch it. So yeah, I keep it very simple for now, because I want to release this as soon as possible. I only implement the absolutely necessary features. Right now, on the starting screen, of course, this is localhost. This is not deployed to TuTab.io yet. You can type in a search term here. For example, Android, search, and we get to the list with the resources. Right now, I only have some fake data here. This is where we only have this one entry with this fake username and so on. And most of the stuff here isn't actually clickable yet. I'm still building this, but I can give you a general idea on how this will look in the future. So we can type in a search term. You can also type in a different one. And I still have to figure out how to do a search properly. Right now, what I do is I take this query here and I search in the title of the resource, which is basically the name of the tutorial, of the course, or of the book or whatever. And I search in the tags, which are these little chips down here. Now every entry also has some more metadata. When we click on it, we see when it was submitted, when it was last updated. There is the link to the resource in the first place and the description. Now, at the moment, I don't search for the search term in the description because I think this could lead to too many wrong results. For example, let's say there is a link to a React beginner tutorial and someone writes in here that it's better than Vue.js, for example. Then if someone would be searching for Vue.js and we search through the description, then they would find the result for this React course, which has nothing to do with Vue in the first place. So I think it makes more sense to just search in the title and in the text, because this should be pretty fitting. Of course, I can still come up with a more sophisticated search algorithm in the future, but for now, this will suffice. We can also already bookmark resources, but of course we have to log in first. So if I click on login, or if I try to set a bookmark, I get to the login screen here. And I'm going to type in my username. We can toggle password on and off. This button animation with the color doesn't look good yet. I will change this later, but for now I try to not focus on the styling too much. We can log in. Now we see our profile picture here on the top. We can log out, and now we can also submit a resource if we want, which opens this dialog where we can submit a new link for a tutorial or a course or a book or whatever. And setting up these forms was actually not as easy as you would imagine, because there's a lot of stuff these forms have to do, and which you have to decide how it works. For example, if I click on this link field and then click out of it, I see this required error message immediately. I don't want to wait until I click submit before I see this, which would also be an option, but I think this instant feedback is more useful, because then people see, okay, I have to select something here. And the same for the tags. These fields are not optional. And the same happens on the sign up screen as well. If we click on the username field but don't type it in, then it will say that this is required. If we type in an invalid character like a space, it will also show this immediate feedback here, but must not contain any white spaces. And the email works pretty similar. If we type in an invalid email, which doesn't have an @ sign, then it says invalid email address until we type something in that actually resembles an email address. And for the password, it will tell us that it has to be at least 6 characters long. And if we type in 6 characters, then this error message immediately goes away. And I think this instant feedback is better than waiting before we click the confirm button. For these forms, I'm using a library called Formic, which makes this a bit easier, but only a bit. It's actually still quite difficult. And it works pretty well with React. So this is how I found it, and this is why I'm using it. So yeah, we can create an account, we can log in, or rather I can do this. You can't yet because it's not online yet. And we can submit resources, which will be entered into my MongoDB database. For the server code, I'm using Node again because I really like this. This is what sends the resources to the website if the website requests it, and this is also what puts resources and user data into the database. And every resource has to be approved first before it will be visible on the website. By default, when we create a new resource, approved will be set to false, so it's not visible yet. It has to be approved by me or a moderator or however I call this in the future, and only then we can query it and find it. And of course in the future I add these other filters here, like the format and so on, where we can filter these resources further. Those are the other fields that someone who submits a resource has to fill out here. They have to check one of these radio buttons here if it's free or not. If they select free, they have to tell us if the resource requires a registration or not, what format it has, what the difficult level is. They have to type in some tags like this, SD, Android, blah blah blah. And down here we have some more optional fields. I make these ones optional because I don't want to overwhelm people with too much they have to fill out, because if they have to fill out too much stuff, then they will just not send the resource in at all. They will just close the window instead. So I make these fields down here optional. Now I need a title and I need the creator name of the resource before I put it on the website, but I can do this myself. Or if I have other people later who wanna check resources for me and help me with this, then they will have to look what's the title of the resource, what's the name of the creator. But I make these fields up here mandatory because it's hard to quickly find out if it's a beginner tutorial or an advanced tutorial. For example, you actually have to watch this tutorial before you can decide this. It's also hard to come up with text without watching the resource. So I make these fields up here mandatory. But the title and the creator name is something you can just quickly find out by taking a look at the link. So this is something that can be filled out by us. And then we have this other box down here where someone can basically send me a message if they think there's something missing in the form or something like that. Yeah, cool. Okay, the discard button doesn't work yet, but the close button works. So yeah, this is basically the current state of the website. The karma value is actually still fake, doesn't have any effect yet. We also can't vote yet, but we can bookmark resources, which is also now saved in the database on your user account. So even if I refresh this page, this is still bookmarked. And yeah, I want to release an early version of this as soon as possible. And I want to use these points and stuff like that to really encourage people to take part in this. And I also want to give people attribution for when they submit a resource, to incentivize them to submit resources in the first place. This is why I think it's important to actually show the username and the profile picture of the person who submitted this resource, because it gives them recognition, and I think that's a better incentive than having these here submitted anonymously, because then why should someone submit this in the first place? And I also want to build a community on this website, a forum basically, because I think it's a nice way to combine these points here, these karma points, with a real community behind it, because then again there is more reason for people to take part in this in the first place. And later when you click this name, it will bring you to the profile of the user. And similarly, I also want to provide attribution for whoever last updated this resource, again to give people an incentive to update this and improve it in the first place. So I think points and attribution are a nice way to incentivize people and gamify this a little bit. But this is not all implemented yet, and this will be something that evolves with time. So yeah, again, if you wanna be one of the first people who will be able to use this, go to toot.io, where at the moment there is this landing page. Type in your email here and I will keep you updated, and you will be under the first people who get access to this. And last but not least in this video, I want to give a little shout out to this company called Xreart, because they sent me a really nice gift, which is absolutely beautiful. Look at this. It's something I can put on my wall. It's basically a Game Boy they deconstructed and turned into this piece of art, and I think this is absolutely beautiful. I'm really nostalgic about this stuff, because this was my childhood. This Game Boy and this Pokemon edition that you can see here on the screen was my childhood, so I really love this stuff. And they also have similar pieces for other game consoles and for iPhones. So if you wanna get one of those, you can go to their website and you can actually use my coupon code codingandflow to get 10% discount. So yeah, check them out if you want to have one of those. I think they are beautiful, and I will look forward to put this on my wall. Yeah, so shout out to Xreart for this nice gift. Thank you for that. And then I thank you for watching this video. I will keep you updated about toot.io, which I think is a nice project, and time will tell if this one will work out and be any useful and gain traction. And yeah, then I see you in the next video. Take care.